Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display showing his destroyed escort ships and the weapon platforms that had appeared from nowhere. His flagship Bloodfang was trapped in the middle of the asteroid field with human weapons aimed at him from every direction. But the Zephyrian commander was not ready to accept defeat from what he still thought of as inferior prey animals. The admiral had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed hundreds of enemy ships during his long career. He had faced desperate enemies before who tried clever tricks when they knew they were going to die. These humans might have surprised him with their trap, but they were still just weak mammals with soft skin and fragile bones. One good hit from his main weapon would end this embarrassing situation. Vextar ordered his crew to charge the plasma cannon that could crack planets in half. The massive weapon drew power from the ship's main reactor and began to glow with deadly energy. If he was going to die today, then he would take these upstart humans with him and show the galaxy that Zephyrians never surrendered to lesser species. His warriors cheered as the cannon reached full power and targeted the human destroyer. Jake watched the enemy flagship prepare to fire its most powerful weapon. The plasma cannon was dangerous enough to destroy his ship even through their advanced armor and shields. Most captains would try to dodge or run away from such a terrible threat. But Jake Morrison was not like most captains, and his crew was not like any other crew in the galaxy. Instead of trying to escape, Jake ordered his ship to accelerate directly toward the massive Zephyrian dreadnought. The Retribution's engines roared to full power as it charged straight at the enemy vessel, like an angry predator attacking a rival. The human destroyer was much smaller than the Bloodfang, but it moved with deadly purpose and perfect coordination. Amy Carter armed every weapon on the ship and prepared to fire as soon as they got close enough. Lisa Brown pushed the engines beyond their safety limits to give them maximum speed and power. Pete Collins plotted the most direct intercept course that would bring them alongside the enemy flagship. Danny Wright jammed all Zephyrian communications to prevent them from calling for help. Jake opened a channel that broadcast on all frequencies so every alien in the area could hear his words. His voice was calm and cold like winter ice as he spoke directly to Vextar and his crew. The humans were not running away or begging for mercy like prey animals were supposed to do. Instead, they were attacking the most dangerous predator in known space without any sign of fear. Vextar could not understand what he was seeing on his sensors. The human ship was flying directly into the path of his planet, killing weapon instead of trying to avoid it. No sane creature would do such a thing unless they had a death wish or knew something he did not. For the first time in his long career as a hunter, the Zephyrian admiral began to feel something he had never experienced before. The feeling was fear, and it grew stronger as the human destroyer got closer to his ship. Vextar's crew started to panic as they realized their prey was not acting like prey at all. Instead, the humans were behaving like the most dangerous predators they had ever seen. Worse than that, they showed no concern for their own safety as long as they could hurt their enemy. The Retribution's true nature revealed itself as additional weapon systems deployed from hidden compartments throughout the hull. Missile pods opened and torpedo tubes extended while energy cannons emerged from concealed positions. The human ship had been designed to look like a harmless freighter, but it was actually one of the most advanced warships ever built by any species. Danny Wright intercepted the Zephyrian crew communications and broadcast them on open channels so everyone could hear what the aliens were saying. The translator programs turned their terrified roars and clicks into words that other species could understand. For the first time in centuries, Zephyrian warriors were screaming in fear instead of their victims. The human destroyer punched through the Bloodfang's shields like they were made of paper. The advanced human technology was far superior to anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Their thick armor and powerful weapons were useless against an enemy that fought with scientific precision instead of brute force. The hunters were learning what it felt like to be completely outmatched. Amy Carter fired the ship's weapons in perfect sequence as they slammed into the enemy hull. Each shot was placed exactly where it would do the most damage to critical systems without destroying the entire ship. The humans wanted prisoners, not corpses, because dead enemies could not spread the word about what had happened here today. Boarding pods shot out from the Retribution and attached themselves to the Zephyrian hull like parasites. Maria Santos led her security teams through the breached sections wearing heavy combat armor and carrying weapons that could cut through alien battlesuits like cloth. The human Marines moved with deadly efficiency through the enemy ship corridors. The Zephyrian warriors found themselves facing an enemy that was everything they were not. Where the aliens relied on size and strength, the humans used speed and intelligence. Where the Zephyrians roared and threatened, the humans stayed silent and professional. Where the alien hunters enjoyed causing pain and fear, the human soldiers simply did their job with ruthless competence. Vextar watched his crew surrender section by section as the human boarding parties took control of his ship. His most elite warriors were defeated by opponents who seemed to anticipate their every move and counter their every tactic. The humans fought like they had been planning this battle for years instead of minutes. Within 1 hour, Admiral Vextar found himself a prisoner aboard his own flagship. His entire crew had been captured or killed, and his ship was under human control. The species he had dismissed as weak prey animals had systematically dismantled his entire operational capacity with surgical precision. The great hunter of the Zephyrian Empire was now the hunted. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the captured alien dreadnought and looked down at the defeated admiral. The Zephyrian leader was still huge and covered with sharp scales and claws, but he no longer seemed dangerous. Fear had made him smaller somehow, and his eyes showed the terrible understanding that he had badly misjudged his prey. The lesson was complete, and now it was time to make sure every predator species in the galaxy learned what the Zephyrians had discovered. Humans were not soft prey animals that could be hunted for sport. They were the apex predators that other apex predators should fear. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy was about to change forever. The 3 Zephyrian ships dropped their stealth systems and appeared on all of Jake's sensors at once. The massive alien vessels looked like huge metal predators, with sharp edges and weapon ports covering their hulls. The largest ship was 5 times bigger than the New Horizon, and bristled with cannons and missile launchers. Jake had never seen anything so frightening in all his years of space travel. Admiral Vextar opened a communication channel to the human ship. His voice was deep and rough like grinding stones. He spoke in broken human language mixed with threatening growls and clicks from his own tongue. The message was simple and brutal. The humans would surrender their ship and become slaves, or they would all die in the next few minutes. Jake responded exactly like Vextar expected him to. His voice shook with fear as he begged the aliens not to hurt his crew. He said they were just simple merchants carrying supplies to mining colonies. They had no weapons or valuable cargo worth fighting over. Please let them go, and they would never return to this area of space again. Lisa screamed over the ship intercom about hull breaches and system failures. Alarms blared throughout the vessel as she reported massive damage to the engines and life support. The New Horizon began to shake and list to one side like it was falling apart under the stress of the alien attack. Sparks flew from control panels, and smoke filled the corridors. Pete shouted that the navigation systems were offline and they were flying blind. He could not plot an escape course because the computers were failing one by one. The ship seemed to be dying around them as more systems shut down every few seconds. Danny sent desperate distress calls on all frequencies, begging anyone who could hear to send help immediately. The Zephyrians were pleased with how quickly the human ship was breaking down. Their weapons had not even fired yet, and the prey was already helpless and afraid. Vextar ordered his cruisers to surround the crippled vessel while he prepared boarding parties to capture the survivors. This hunt was going even easier than he had hoped. Jake changed course toward a nearby asteroid field, hoping to find cover among the floating rocks. The New Horizon limped forward, trailing atmosphere and debris from the fake damage Lisa had created. The ship moved slowly and awkwardly like a wounded animal trying to crawl away from its attackers. Vextar followed at a safe distance, enjoying the fear he could hear in the human voices. The asteroid field was dense with chunks of rock and metal floating in complex patterns. Some pieces were as small as cars, while others were bigger than city. Jake navigated carefully between them, looking for a place to hide his ship. The Zephyrians stayed close behind him, confident that their prey could not escape in such a dangerous maze. Pete guided them deeper into the field, following what seemed like random paths between the larger asteroids. The New Horizon squeezed through narrow gaps and around sharp corners, barely avoiding collisions with the floating debris. Lisa kept reporting more system failures and power losses, making their situation sound more desperate by the minute. Vextar was starting to feel suspicious about how convenient the asteroid field was for the humans. Most prey animals tried to run toward open space where they could use speed to escape. Coming into a maze of rocks seemed like a strange choice unless they knew something he did not. He ordered his ships to be more careful and watch for tricks, or traps. Jake led the alien hunters deeper into the field until they reached what looked like a dead end, surrounded by huge asteroids on all sides. The New Horizon stopped moving, and Jake sent another surrender message to Vextar. His voice sounded completely defeated as he offered to give up if the aliens promised not to kill his crew. Lisa reported that life support was failing, and they only had minutes of air left. The Zephyrian admiral was satisfied that he had finally cornered his prey. He ordered the boarding parties to prepare for immediate capture operations. His warriors were excited to finally get aboard the human ship and see what these weak creatures looked like up close. Some of them had never seen a live human before, and were curious about how they would react to being caught. That was when Jake gave the signal that changed everything. He spoke one word into his communicator in a calm, steady voice that was completely different from his previous panicked tone. Lisa heard the word and smiled as she pressed a series of hidden switches on her control panel. The asteroids around them suddenly came to life. What the Zephyrians had thought were just floating rocks were actually concealed weapon platforms and missile pods that had been waiting in the field for months. The fake asteroid shells fell away to reveal railgun turrets and torpedo launchers all aimed at the alien ships. Lisa had not been screaming about damage to their systems. She had been coordinating the activation sequence for the hidden weapons. The first salvo of human weapons fire tore through the two Zephyrian cruisers before they could react or raise their shields. Railgun slugs moving at incredible speed punched through their hulls like paper. The second wave of guided missiles eliminated their fighter craft and destroyed their weapon systems. Both ships began to break apart as secondary explosions ripped through their interior decks. Jake's cargo ship also transformed as fake hull plating fell away to reveal military-grade armor and hidden weapon ports. The New Horizon was actually the UEF stealth destroyer Retribution on a deep reconnaissance mission in Zephyrian space. Jake and his crew were not merchants at all but special forces operators who had been hunting the hunting fleet for months. Amy Carter took her position at the tactical station as the ship's real weapons came online. She had been disguised as a cargo handler but was actually a lieutenant commander and the best weapons officer in the human fleet. Her fingers flew over the targeting controls as she locked onto the remaining Zephyrian flagship with enough firepower to crack a small moon. Vextar found himself surrounded and outgunned by an enemy that had appeared from nowhere. His two escort ships were destroyed, and his fighters were gone. The weapon platforms hidden in the asteroids had perfect firing solutions on his ship from every direction. The human vessel he had thought was helpless prey was actually a warship more advanced than anything in his fleet. Jake opened a new communication channel to the Zephyrian admiral. This time his voice was cold and professional without any trace of fear. He informed Vextar that he was now a prisoner of the United Earth Forces and that his hunting days were over. The predator had become the prey, and the hunt was about to end in a way no Zephyrian had ever imagined possible. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his cargo ship and looked at the stars ahead. The New Horizon was 3 days away from the mining colony on Kepler 442b. His crew had made this trip many times before. They carried food, medicine, and equipment to the people who worked in the mines far from Earth. Jake liked these runs because they were usually quiet and safe. Lisa Brown sat at the engineering station checking the ship systems. She was good with machines and kept the old freighter running smooth. Pete Collins worked at the navigation desk plotting their course through space. He knew all the safe routes and dangerous areas to avoid. Danny Wright handled communications and kept watch for other ships or signals. The rest of the crew worked in the cargo bays and engine rooms doing their jobs like always. Jake did not know that 3 massive alien ships were watching them from far away. The ships belonged to the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth and claws. They were hunters who traveled through space looking for weak species to catch and kill for sport. To them, hunting was not just about food or territory, it was about showing power and having fun by making others afraid. Admiral Vextar commanded the largest Zephyrian ship called the Bloodfang. He was the best hunter in their entire fleet and had destroyed many worlds. His ship was huge with thick armor and powerful weapons. Two smaller cruisers flew beside him carrying more warriors ready for battle. Vextar had been hunting in this area of space for months looking for good prey. The Zephyrians had met humans before in small colonies and outposts. Every time the soft pink creatures had run away screaming or begged for mercy. Humans seemed weak with no natural weapons like claws or fangs. They had thin skin that tore easily and moved slowly compared to other species. Their technology looked basic, and their ships were small. To the Zephyrians, humans were perfect prey animals. Vextar studied the scan data from the New Horizon. It was a simple cargo ship with only 12 crew members. The hull was old and the weapons were weak. The ship flew in a straight line without any clever moves or tricks. The humans inside probably did not even know they were being watched. This would be an easy hunt that his young warriors could use for training. Jake noticed something strange. On his sensor display, 3 large contacts had appeared at the edge of their detection range. The signals were too big to be asteroids and moved too fast to be debris. He called Lisa over to look at the readings. She frowned and ran more detailed scans, but the contacts stayed just beyond clear sensor range. Pete checked the star charts to see if any ships were supposed to be in this area. The records showed nothing scheduled for weeks in any direction. Danny tried to contact the unknown vessels but got no response to his calls. The crew started to feel worried, but Jake told them to stay calm and keep working. Maybe the contacts were just sensor errors or distant mining ships. The Zephyrians moved closer but stayed hidden behind their stealth systems. Vextar wanted to study the human ship more before attacking. He had learned that good hunters always watch their prey first to understand how they behaved. Some species tried to fight back or had hidden weapons. Others tried to run away or call for help. A few even tried to bargain or trade for their lives. Lisa ran diagnostics on all the ship systems to make sure everything worked right. The engines showed normal power levels and the life support was stable. The cargo was secure and the hull showed no problems. She told Jake that the ship was running fine and ready for anything. Pete double-checked their course to make sure they were still heading toward the colony on time. Danny kept sending signals to the unknown contacts, but heard only empty space. He tried different frequencies and languages, but nothing worked. The silence made him more worried because most ships answered basic safety calls even if they were busy. Jake ordered the crew to continue normal operations but stay alert for any changes. Vextar was pleased with what he saw. The humans acted exactly like prey animals when they sensed danger. They were nervous and confused but did not take strong action. They did not change course or speed up or power their weapons. Instead, they just kept flying straight into his trap like frightened animals running toward a cliff. The Admiral decided it was time to begin the hunt. He gave orders to his fleet to move into attack positions. The 2 cruiser captains were excited to finally see some action after weeks of boring patrol duty. Their crews prepared boarding parties and slave cages for the prisoners they would take. Young Zephyrian warriors sharpened their claws and checked their weapons. Jake saw the 3 contacts suddenly appear much closer on his sensors. They were definitely ships and they were huge. The largest one was bigger than anything he had ever seen except for military dreadnoughts. All 3 vessels were heading straight for the New Horizon at high speed. Their weapon systems were active, and they were not responding to any radio calls. Lisa ran to her station and started emergency procedures. She powered up all available systems and prepared the ship for combat or escape. Pete began calculating jump coordinates to get them away from the area fast. Danny sent distress signals on all emergency frequencies hoping someone would hear them and send help. The rest of the crew strapped into their stations and waited for orders. The hunt had begun, and the Zephyrians were confident they would have another easy victory. They did not know that Jake Morrison and his crew were not what they appeared to be. The New Horizon was not really a simple cargo ship, and the humans aboard were not helpless merchants. The Zephyrians were about to learn that sometimes the prey you think is weakest can be the most dangerous of all. The captured Zephyrian fleet limped toward the nearest human naval station with the Retribution, escorting them like a guard dog watching dangerous prisoners. But before they left the asteroid field, Jake Morrison made sure to transmit detailed records of the entire engagement across known space using the most powerful communication arrays in the sector. The message was simple and broadcast in every known alien language and dialect that human computers had on file. The transmission showed exactly what had happened to Admiral Vexitar and his hunting fleet when they tried to treat humans like helpless prey animals. The video included the tactical analysis of how the trap had worked and clear footage of Zephyrian warriors surrendering to human marines. Jake made sure the broadcast reached every major government and military command in the galaxy. The Altarian Trade Federation received copies along with the Krogar Collective and dozens of other species that might be considering humans as potential targets. The message was not a threat or a warning, but simply a statement of fact about what would happen to anyone who made the same mistake as the Zephyrians. The recording spread through galactic communication networks faster than anyone had expected. Within hours, every species with space travel capability had seen the footage of the most feared hunting fleet in known space being completely destroyed by what they had thought was a simple human cargo ship. The implications were staggering and frightening to civilizations that had always seen humans as weak newcomers. News of the engagement reached the Zephyrian homeworlds within days and caused panic throughout their empire. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries suddenly found their reputation crumbling like sand. If humans could trap and eliminate their most elite hunting fleet, then what else might these strange mammals be capable of doing to their enemies? Other predator species began to reconsider their plans for expanding into human-controlled space. The Altarian Trade Federation had been preparing to force humans out of several profitable shipping routes. Using their superior numbers and firepower, those operations were quietly canceled as Federation leaders watched the footage of Zephyrian dreadnoughts being torn apart by concealed human weapons. The Krogar Collective specialized in slave raids on primitive worlds that could not defend themselves properly. Their fleets had been moving closer to human colonies for months while planning massive capture operations. But after seeing what happened to Vextar, those fleets suddenly changed course and headed back toward the galactic core where humans were less likely to interfere with their activities. Commander. Alex Turner sat in his office at Human Intelligence Services headquarters on Earth, watching the galactic reaction to their carefully planned information campaign. Every major alien government was reassessing their relationship with humanity based on this single engagement. The psychological impact was far greater than any military victory could have achieved through normal battle. Alex had been planning this operation for over a year after human colonies started reporting attacks by various predator species who saw them as easy targets. Rather than respond with massive fleets and open warfare, he had chosen a more subtle approach that would make every potential enemy think twice before threatening human civilians. The intelligence commander had carefully studied how each alien species communicated and what kind of information would have the greatest impact on their decision-making processes. Some civilizations respected only raw military power, while others were more impressed by tactical cleverness and strategic thinking. The footage from the asteroid field trap contained elements that would frighten all of them. Species throughout the galaxy began sending diplomatic messages to Earth, asking about human military capabilities and intentions. Many of these were thinly disguised attempts to determine if humanity had more surprises like the one that had destroyed the Zephyrian hunting fleet. Alex made sure those questions were answered with careful ambiguity that suggested vast hidden strengths. The Galactic Council, which had previously dismissed human applications for membership, suddenly found themselves very interested in opening formal relations with Earth. Council representatives who had barely acknowledged human existence began scheduling meetings and offering trade agreements. The balance of power in known space was shifting faster than anyone had thought possible. Admiral Grace Phillips commanded the human fleet operations from her headquarters station in the Sol system. She watched the strategic situation change almost daily as alien civilizations adjusted their policies toward humanity. Species that had been planning attacks were now requesting mutual defense treaties and non-aggression pacts. Grace had been building up human naval forces for years in preparation for the inevitable conflicts with more aggressive alien species. But this single engagement had achieved more than entire battle fleets could have accomplished through conventional warfare. The reputation for tactical superiority was worth more than 1,000 dreadnoughts when it came to deterring potential enemies. The Admiral began receiving reports from human colonies throughout the Outer Rim territories about changes in alien behavior. Pirates and raiders who had previously attacked human settlements were now avoiding them completely. Slave traders were crossing human space at maximum speed without stopping or scanning for potential victims. Back on the captured Zephyrian flagship, Vextar was being held in comfortable but secure quarters, while human intelligence officers questioned him about his empire's military capabilities and future plans. The former admiral found himself cooperating fully with his captors because he had seen what happened to those who underestimated human determination. The Zephyrian provided detailed information about other predator species that might threaten human interests. He warned about the Thanagar Empire that specialized in biological warfare, and the Void Hunters who could phase through solid matter. But he also admitted that none of these species had ever faced an enemy like humanity before. Jake Morrison received orders to escort the captured fleet to a secure facility where the alien prisoners would be processed and eventually returned to their home worlds. But the real purpose of the mission was to make sure every species along their route could see the defeated Zephyrian ships and understand what had happened to the galaxy's most feared hunters. The message was spreading exactly as planned, and the results were better than anyone had hoped. Humanity had announced its arrival as a major galactic power, not through conquest or intimidation, but through a single, perfectly executed demonstration of tactical superiority. The prey had become the predator, and every species in known space was taking notice. The transformation was happening faster than expected as alien governments rushed to establish better relations with Earth before humanity decided they were threats that needed to be eliminated. The galaxy was learning that there was a difference between being peaceful and being weak, and that humans could be the most dangerous enemies of all when they chose to fight. 6 months after the destruction of Admiral Vexitar's hunting fleet, the balance of power in the galaxy had changed completely. The Zephyrian Empire that had once been the most feared military force in known space now found themselves begging for human protection from their former victims who were seeking revenge for centuries of brutal oppression and slavery. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of humanity's newest dreadnought called the Inevitable. His promotion had come with command of the most powerful fleet ever assembled by Earth. The massive warship was 3 times larger than any previous human vessel and carried enough firepower to level entire planets if necessary. But its most important weapon was the reputation that preceded it wherever it went. Jake's fleet was conducting what they politely called freedom of navigation patrols through sectors of space that had previously been controlled by various predator species. These areas had once been no-go zones for peaceful traders and colonists from weaker civilizations. Now human warships moved through them freely, while alien pirates and raiders fled at the first sign of their approach. The irony of the situation was not lost on Jake as he watched his tactical display showing dozens of distress calls from species asking for human intervention in territorial disputes. Humanity had been forced to become the very thing the galaxy had feared most, which was an apex predator that hunted other predators. But unlike the species they had displaced, humans hunted with purpose and restraint rather than for sport or cruelty. Lieutenant Katie Rogers worked at the communication station, processing incoming messages from 17 different alien governments, requesting human military support in peacekeeping operations. Each request came with offers of trade agreements, territory rights, and access to rare resources that these species had never shared with anyone before. The transformation had been so complete that many alien civilizations now competed with each other to offer the best deals to humanity in exchange for protection from their enemies. Species that had warred with each other for thousands of years were suddenly willing to negotiate peaceful settlements if humans would guarantee the agreements and provide enforcement when needed. Jake remembered when humanity had been seen as newcomers to galactic civilization with primitive technology and weak military forces. Earth's applications for membership in various interstellar organizations had been rejected or ignored by aliens who saw no benefit in dealing with such an insignificant species. Now those same organizations were offering humanity leadership, positions, and begging for their guidance. The Galactic Council had not only accepted Earth as a full member, but had offered humanity a permanent seat on the ruling committee along with authority over military peacekeeping operations. The council representatives who had once dismissed human diplomats now treated them with the kind of respect usually reserved for ancient and powerful civilizations. Amy Carter had been promoted to captain and given command of her own battle group, specializing in rapid response to threats against peaceful species. Her ships patrolled the outer rim territories where most of the predator activity had traditionally occurred. The mere presence of human vessels in an area was usually enough to prevent conflicts before they could start. The former Zephyrian territories had become a testing ground for human peacekeeping methods. Jake's forces had established patrol bases throughout the region and were working with local species to rebuild civilizations that had been destroyed by centuries of hunting raids. The work was difficult but rewarding as entire worlds began to recover from the trauma of alien predation. Pete Collins now served as Jake's strategic planning officer and spent his time analyzing threat reports from across the galaxy. The data showed a remarkable decrease in predator activity wherever human forces operated. Most aggressive species had simply moved their operations to areas where they were less likely to encounter human patrols. But some alien predators had chosen to challenge human authority directly and learned the same lesson that Vextar had discovered in the asteroid field. The Thanagar Empire had tried to raid a human-protected colony world and found their biowarfare fleet completely destroyed by human countermeasures they had never seen before. The Void Hunters had attempted to phase through human ship hulls and discovered that Earth technology could track and target them even in their ethereal state. Danny Wright had been assigned to the Psychological Warfare Division where he helped develop the propaganda campaigns that convinced potential enemies to reconsider their aggressive plans. His work focused on making sure every predator species understood exactly what would happen if they threatened human interests or the civilizations under human protection. The reputation for tactical superiority that had begun with the Zephyrian engagement continued to grow with each successful operation. Humans had proven they could defeat any enemy through superior planning, advanced technology, and ruthless efficiency when violence became necessary. But they had also shown restraint and mercy toward enemies who surrendered and civilians who needed protection. Lisa Brown commanded the engineering corps that was helping rebuild worlds damaged by predator raids. Her teams worked with alien scientists to develop new technologies for defense and recovery. The cooperation between humans and other species had produced innovations that benefited everyone involved in the peacekeeping efforts. Maria Santos led the human marine forces that were training local militias to defend their own worlds against future threats. Her soldiers taught aliens how to fight back against predators using human tactics and equipment. The program was so successful that many species were requesting permanent human military advisors to help maintain their security. Back on Earth, Commander Alex Turner watched the strategic situation continue to evolve in humanity's favor. The intelligence networks he had built throughout the galaxy provided early warning about potential threats before they could develop into serious problems. Most conflicts were now being prevented through diplomatic pressure backed by the threat of human military intervention. The most remarkable change was in how other species viewed humanity itself. The image of weak prey animals had been completely replaced by a reputation as the most dangerous predators in known space. But unlike previous apex species, humans used their power to protect the weak, rather than exploit them. This had earned them loyalty and respect that could never be achieved through fear alone. Admiral Grace Phillips coordinated the overall human military strategy from her command center in the Sol system. Her fleets were deployed throughout the galaxy, maintaining peace and responding to emergencies. The human navy had grown from a small defensive force to the most powerful and respected military organization in known space. Jake Morrison reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this position as he looked out at the stars from his flagship bridge. Earth had never wanted to become the galaxy's police force or conquerors of alien worlds. But when pushed by aggressive predator species, they had proven something that every civilization in known space now understood completely. There was a fundamental difference between being peaceful and being weak, and confusing the two was a mistake that no intelligent species would make twice. Humanity had evolved from perceived prey animals to the apex predators that other apex predators feared. They had become the enforcers of a new galactic order based on protection of the innocent rather than exploitation of the vulnerable. Tyakime, Galaxy had a new ruler, and its name was humanity. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through demonstrated superiority in the most important skill any species could possess, which was the ability to protect those who could not protect themselves. The hunters had become the guardians, and the age of predation was finally coming to an end.